are being missiled by propaganda of this sort.
And so your position remains that we want further proof of Pakistan's action on terror before the dialogue process resumes.
As I said, Pakistan can do much more to deliver on this subject.
And must do much more.
And must do much more.
Foreign Secretary, let's take a break there. I want to come back and talk to you about Australia and briefly about the United States of America. That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an interview with the new Foreign Secretary, Nirupama Rao. Foreign Secretary, let's start this part with the increasing spate of attacks on Indians in Australia. Are you satisfied with the response of the Australian government?
Well, we've been in close touch with the Australian government since these attacks began. And unfortunately, there has been a spate of these attacks, violence directed against innocent and hapless, I would say, young Indians who have been the target of such violence. The Australian government has been sensitized to our concerns, and we have impressed upon them that they need to do more to address the cause of this violence and to bring the perpetrators to book, because you need to restore the climate of confidence and security among Indians living in Australia.
So when you say you've impressed upon them the need to do more, that clearly suggests that they weren't doing enough.
I would say that the Australian government has engaged with us closely in the wake of the attacks, and there has been a continuing dialogue and communication. As you know, we have a good relationship with Australia. From the Australian side, it's often defined as excellent, and we have shared that assessment, but we must not let these events cast a shadow on the relationship.
Let me quote to you the Indian Minister for Overseas Affairs, Karan Thapar, speaking on the 9th of this month. He says, why can't they arrest them and put them behind bars and prosecute them? It is very unfortunate that things are not moving as they promised. It is very disturbing for all of us in the government. Clearly, Mr. Ravi feels that the Australians are not doing enough.
I think there is legitimate concern, and the Minister of Overseas Indian Affairs has expressed that legitimate sense of concern that we feel.
The MEA shares that concern?
Obviously, we share the concern of in regard to a situation where our citizens are being attacked.
Now, the Indian press are particularly concerned that the Australian government is reluctant to accept that racism could be a substantive motive or cause behind these attacks. What's your assessment? What's the government's view? Is racism a factor?
Well, let's look at the situation. You've had one community targeted. You've had persons belonging to one community targeted. And these attacks have kept occurring. I mean, there's been a certain pattern of these attacks. Now, what the Australians tell us is that you could attribute this to urban violence, opportunistic violence, but that racism could also be an element in this. So let's see. The investigations are going on, but we are concerned that it's just this one community that has been targeted.
Twice or thrice you said that there's just one community that's been targeted and the attacks keep happening. And yet your ministry has advised the Indian press to exercise restraint. Do you believe that their coverage has been exaggerated or unbalanced?
Well, let me say that the media feels the pulse of the people, definitely, and the people of India are concerned about the attacks that have happened in Australia. Having said that, I would also like to add that you have to place every reaction you make in the larger context. And there is a very large number of Indians who live in Australia, who've made Australia their home over the decades. And you must ensure that while you must report without fear or favor, your responses, your assessments have to be calibrated and measured to the extent possible.
So, in other words, the press should keep things in context.
In context, yes.
Let's turn briefly to the United States of America. You mentioned America in part one. I want to pick up on something that you spoke about. As the Obama administration's AFPAC strategy begins to work out, it's clear to everyone that its success is critically dependent upon the cooperation President Obama gets from Pakistan. Does that mean that there could be a time when President Obama becomes sensitive to Pakistan's view that the terror India faces is linked to Kashmir. Does that possibility worry?
I'm not worried about that because the United States is fully sensitized to our concerns on these issues. They consulted us closely in the run-up to the FPAC strategy's formulation, and we continue to remain in close touch with our American interlocutors on this. America is well aware of India's approach to these issues, our concerns about terrorism emanating from Pakistan, our desire to see a secure and stable Afghanistan, and that will involve tackling the sources of terrorism in our region. And America understands that Pakistan continues to provide safe haven to a number of terrorists operating in our region.
I suppose the key issue here is the following. Is President Obama looking to play a more assertive role in sorting out Kashmir than India would be willing to accept?
Well, current President Obama and the American administration have told us over and over again that they have no desire to play a mediatory role on issues concerning India and Pakistan.
Even though he says different things in the letters he sends President Zardari in November, just before his December AFPAC speech, even though in his original AFPAC speech of March he spoke about constructive diplomacy, despite those contradictory statements or commitments, you still believe that he doesn't want to play a role?
I don't believe there is contradiction here. The relationship between India and the United States is a strategic global partnership, and there is confidence, there is trust in this communication that India and the United States have, and the United States is well aware of our position on
My
this.
last question to you, is there a danger that India and Pakistan could be rehyphenated, either because of the way the Obama administration views South Asia or because of the way events are playing out?
Well, Karan, the logic of the relationship and the logic of the times defies that. Defies your assessment. There is no question of this relationship being rehyphenated, as you say. Our relationship with the United States is a mature relationship. It is one of the defining partnerships of the times, as President Obama said so eloquently during our Prime Minister's visit.
Foreign Secretary, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.